Hey, you're the journalist? Good. No, it's fine. I can't have any of my supervisors hear me talking to you. Um, we tend to be cautious of outsiders anyway, but especially now, given recent events. Um, and anything you publish won't have my name in it, right? Yeah. Well, I want the truth to be known. I don't want the name Edward Prince all over your newspapers. Um, it's going to be hard enough for me to find another job if and when this unravels. I don't need the stigma of being a blabbermouth, so I'd appreciate your discretion. Yeah, I can start wherever you want me to. It took you a while to get over. I'm not surprised. Um, Pilgrim's Breach has not been. We haven't been getting a lot of tourists lately. Um, I'm guessing you came over on the Cessna, on the puddle jumper. Yeah. Mm. Yeah, he's a good guy, Jeff. He's a good guy. But if you want to get over here, he's the only guy, unless you want to take a boat. So, good guy or not, he's overtaxed, and it makes things difficult. So, yeah, where would you like me to start? I can do that. Um, so, obviously, you're here, so you know a little bit about the hospital. Um, Saint Sentience has been here for uh, over 50 years. I'm not sure exactly when it was established. I should know by now. I've been here myself for 4 years, so but I don't. So, um, but it's been here a long time. It's the only hospital on the island. Um, so let me give you a little bit of background here because it's important to know this stuff to put the events of a few weeks ago into context. And it's not just the event that you're thinking of, that the reason you came over. Um, it's important and it's big, but there's been other things. Other things are going on. It's not just that. But, um, so I'm an attending ER physician. I have been for a while. I worked in DC for a little while, and before that, I was in North Carolina. And 5 years ago, I moved to Pilgrim's Breach. For a lot of reasons. But living in a Pacific island had an allure that I guess I could trace back to my childhood. Um, but so yeah, shortly after I moved here, I was gonna open up a private practice, but people here are very insular. Um, I don't think I would have gotten much business, and early indicators were that it would have been a failure. There are a couple other doctors on the island, and everybody already went to them, and nobody was interested in making a change. Because, like I said, people here are very insular. Um, so I went back to ER work, which I'd done for a long time before that anyway. So, uh, yeah, on some level, I was certainly hoping to get out of it, but uh, play the cards you dealt. I liked the place enough that I wanted to stay, make a go of it at least. Now I'm not so sure. Um, you know, a year from now, I don't think it's likely that I'm going to be here. So, um, yeah. So there's there were problems from the moment that I started. One of them is sort of it's a big problem, but it's a problem that any hospital has in an isolated area or semi-isolated area, um, and it's particularly evident in the ER. So St. Sentience does not have a trauma unit. Um, we don't have a quarantine room. Uh, we don't have a lot. We can do basic cardiac procedures. We can do caths, and we have a small EP lab, so we can do some minor electrophysiology work, some ablation, stuff like that. But once it gets any more complicated than blockage and arrhythmias, sort of stock arrhythmias, um, we can't go any further with the heart. Uh, we don't have an oncology ward. So the hospital is a full hospital, but it is a small, privately funded hospital. So it does what I think what it does very well, but it has areas where it is lacking. And if you have a situation like that, which we do, it usually becomes most evident in the emergency room, because an emergency room is really, I'm like the mailman, right? People come in to me 9 times out of 10, or even 19 times out of 20. They come in with a few stock maladies, right? And I have a few sort of stock procedures that I can perform, or medicines I can prescribe, therapies, and that covers most of what we see. But all those other cases, I end up being just a router. Anything that requires a specialist. So really, anything complicated, I will, send them to the appropriate parties. And we have some of those parties on the island and some of those parties in the hospital, but not a lot of them. So when cases like that come along, we either call Jeff, and he has airlifted people to the mainland, multiple times, or we call the Coast Guard, and then we get a helicopter out here. But either way, the patient is not staying at St. Sentience. They're going somewhere with a trauma unit, something like that. It's a quiet island, but there are, we do get our fair share of strange tragedies. So, and I find those instances frustrating. I've done some fairly specialized work, but if you don't have the tools, if you don't have the equipment, it doesn't matter how good you are. The patient is going to be much better off somewhere where they have what they need. So it makes the job a little more boring than I would like, because either I immediately know what needs to be done when you walk in, and I just do it by rote, or you're one of these highly specialized cases, and I end up having to send you, you know, to Bethesda or Hopkins or somewhere not Pilgrim's Breach and not Saint Sentience. So, but Monica, Monica was already dead when she came in. So couldn't send her anywhere. Um, you know, it seems glib, but bagged and tagged is sort of the um, the phrase that gets bandied about in situations like that. Um, we had the coroner come. He did an official report. We had the constabulary come. The chief of police here. We had our local newspaper send 3 or 4 people over the past week or so. So it definitely made us a splash locally. I haven't seen much about it nationally, which I find peculiar. Monica was she was 29 years old. She was born on Pilgrim's Breach. Her parents were from Pilgrim's Breach. Her father was a fisherman. Her mother, stay-at-home mom. She had not yet, I don't think, found her calling from what I've heard. She had spent some time in the lower 48, the contiguous 48, and had come back several times back and forth. It's easy to get a little stir crazy after you've been here for a while. I thought I heard the superintendent. If she comes, I'm going to have to end this. So, and I'm going to have to pretend like I don't know who you are. I just got to keep it down, really. So yeah, she was a bit of a dreamer, I guess. I knew her in passing. More accurately, I had friends that knew her, but I knew her enough that I knew stuff about her. I knew she tended bar at the Squid and Pawn for a while, anyway. She had worked as a waitress. She'd done a lot of odd jobs around the island. I'm not sure what she did in the mainland. I know she went to school for a while, but I don't know if she got a degree or what that degree was in. I don't know those details. I know that 11 days ago, she came into the ER. She was brought into the ER by 2 of her girlfriends who had found her in her apartment. This was at a little bit after midnight, 12:30 or so, and they had just found her. When she came in, she had already been dead for 3 hours, somewhere between 2 and 5 hours. I believe the medical examiner said about 3 hours. She'd been stabbed and strangled. She had ligature marks around her neck, um, but she had been stabbed while she was alive, and the stab wounds were enough, I think, to kill her. Whoever did this, and you hear this a lot about serial killers. They lose control, and they go overboard. Well, murder is overboard already, but even after the victim is dead, they will still continue to try and kill them more. I don't know. I can't pretend to understand the psychology behind it. But yeah, so she had been stabbed in the back several times in a sort of pattern, and then strangled. Her friends had found her. She didn't have her shirt or any bra on, but she did have jeans on and shoes. There weren't any, from what I was told and from what I saw, certainly, defense wounds. She had sort of these, it's sort of the rage these days, the fingernails that have different designs on each nail, they're like bedazzled with little sequins. So she had those on all her nails, and they were in perfect. She hadn't been scratching anything. Her nails were perfectly filed. So the toxicology report hasn't come back yet. So it's hard to know. She might have been drugged, which would explain the lack of defense wounds. So yeah, that's most of what I know. Yeah, I remember it very well. It was it's almost like a rune inscribed into her back. The wounds were deep; they penetrated her rib cage. Whoever did it was strong and determined. Yeah, I can draw it for you. Let me just find my pencil here. I have a little bit of a cold. If you work in a hospital, you're going to spend most of your time with a cold. I carry this notebook with me. It's sort of my little handbook of for differential diagnoses. I should have gone digital by now, but I just haven't. So, yeah, it was strange because it seemed almost like it was here's a blank page. A little bit like an anchor. It's sort of a long, straight, vertical line, and then a single, almost like a sickle or half of an anchor coming from the bottom, and then another straight line on the opposite side that was angled downwards at about 45 degrees. And each one of these lines were made up of several cuts, except for the top line, which looked like it might have just been one stab. These proportions might be a little wrong, but basically that. So yeah, this this line here, I think, was one stab, but these were several, and this was actually very precisely done, this kind of curve, which to me, you know, I don't know forensics, but it indicated to me that the person knew how to use a knife. So yeah, what else did you want to know? I couldn't even begin to speculate on suspects. I didn't know her well enough to know who had cause to dislike her, but I truly feel that you are probably going to be barking up the wrong tree if you pursue this thinking this is a jilted lover, or someone she just got into a fight with. I'm not saying it's not someone she knew, maybe it is, but I think it's the history is a little more complicated and has something to do with this place. And by this place, I don't mean sentience, I mean Pilgrim's Breach. Because like I said, there have been all sorts of crazy things going on here lately. I'm sorry, I'm getting a page. Give me a second. I'm going to have to answer that soon, but yeah, there have been all kinds of crazy things going on here lately. That's why I want to leave as soon as I can. Well, I mean, I've only been here for half a decade, right? But people that I've spoken to who have lived here longer have told me that there's been a trend over the last decade or even more of just, a lot of little things, but enough that on balance they indicate a trend of just a gentle downward slope into something unpleasant. Specific examples? Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, actually, I mean, just in the past few months, there's been a sort of what the fishermen call a variation on the red tide. Basically, if you go, I'm sure you noticed this, although you flew in, but if you've been to the beaches, it's hard to avoid the beaches here, you'll see, dead fish, thousands and thousands, these little dead fish. I'm not sure the type. You could ask Dr. Potter, is the marine biologist, and he's been investigating that, and obviously he has a lot going on. This is a great place for him to study. I guess he's my closest friend on the island, and we're not that close, but I still have a lot of friends on the mainland, but just never really connected with anyone here. I always felt like, I definitely still feel like a visitor, and I don't think I'm ever going to feel like I belong here because I'm not going to stay long enough. The views are spectacular. The weather can be a little cold, but is generally not bad. The people are, on the whole, nice. I'm not a fan of the New England accent, personally, but it's a minor quibble. It just feels like there's an underlying current, would be the way that I would describe it, of malice, something's going on. Anyway, so yeah, thousands of dead fish lining the beaches, and it's been on and off. I think they were saying it had something to do with the phases of the moon, um, or it was the timing was tied to the phases of the moon, but I don't know for sure. I should have asked more about it, but you could certainly ask. Uh, Dr. Potter's really nice, and I'd happily give you um, his number and his office address. He's only a few blocks away. Um, he might be able to tell you more. Other examples? Well, and Jeff, your pilot, could probably attest to this. Um, Last time I spoke to him, he told me uh, he was worried about getting into a plane crash, that he maintains his own plane. He knows it back and forth, uh, every which way, and he's intimately familiar with the kinds of things that can go wrong in aviation. But he said that short of sabotage, he's not sure. That things have been failing on his plane that shouldn't have been, inexplicably, and he can't figure out why. And that he's had a rough last few couple of flights. I don't know how your flight was, um, but certainly that feeds into it. Um, but mostly it really is. I mean, specific examples. There are more. I'm blanking on them right now. But mostly it's that undercurrent that I was talking about. Um, I'm never glad when anyone dies. Uh, there's too much death. Death is not romantic. Death is boring and horrible, and especially someone so young. Um, and I know she would have figured out her life. You know, she just needed a little more time. Some people take more time than others. I didn't get my MD until I was in my 30s. So some people just take a little longer. I mean, the idea that you go to college when you're 18, you're supposed to know what you want to do for the rest of your life. It's the last 18-year-old you met who had a clue what they wanted to be doing. I'm still not sure what I want to be doing. But I guess what I'm saying is I'm glad that you're here. I hope that you can get to the bottom of this. I would start. I don't know if you spoke to Jeff any more than just as a pilot, but the heavy hitters on this island, the mayor, the sheriff, they use Jeff quite a bit. A lot of people use the ferries, the boats. You might want to talk to Stork. They call him Stork. I don't know his real name, but down at the wharf, you can talk to him. Those would be the people I would think would know the most about other people on the island. I tend to see a lot of, frankly, what we get here more than anything, are drug addicts who come in here complaining of non-specific back pain that we can't disprove. So we have to give them pain medication. That is maybe 25% of what I do here. It's depressing, but not as depressing as murder. So I hope that you find what you're looking for. I hope that you find who killed Monica. Maybe it's tied to all this other stuff that's going around. I'm not a superstitious person. Um, Occam's razor and shouldn't needlessly multiply entities and all that. I'm not suggesting that there's something supernatural going on here, but I am suggesting that there is something going on here, something with a prosaic explanation, but something that still needs an explanation. So, where are you staying? Well, it's either that or the Holiday Inn. We don't have a whole lot of options, right? Okay. Well, I'm here. I'm here every night except for Tuesday. That's my night off. Yeah, night shifts every time. I like night shifts. Thank God for a Red Bull, because 5-hour energy. That's how I get through it. Yeah. Okay. Well, I need to get back. So just you can either come by or I'll give you my card. I'll give you my card and you can just. If you ever need me, call me or come by. Okay, great. Thank you. Good night.